So Anirudh is an incoming associate at Boston Consulting Group and is the president at the 80/20 Consultants. And he is the Ernest and Young Scholar 2021 and a social entrepreneur. He has also interned at EY, BCG, Deloitte, and at Fortum India. Parth is an incoming business analyst at McKinsey and Company, the president of the prestigious Economic Society of SRCC, and has interned at Citibank, a boutique investment banking and an equity advisory firm. So these are a lot of achievements for a person pursuing under graduation. It's a dream for many of us. So yeah, congratulations for the same, and we welcome you on behalf of Prabhavi for Youth and by Youth. And now we shall begin with the panel discussion. And we had some questions that came in the registration forms. So we'll be going with them first. And the audience, if you think that you have any kind of questions and queries, you can just put it in the chat box. Okay. So yeah, let's get on to the quiz segment. The first question I would ask is, what do you think made you stand out in your college life, which led to securing positions at the top two consulting firms, McKinsey and BCG, respectively? So we'll take the answers one by one. Yeah. Any one of you can go first, no problem.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. To begin with, basically, so these firms actually, if I kind of would begin with the recruitment process, so these firms had come on campus, which is how we both of us actually and all the other students have got actually access to these opportunities. Otherwise, it would have been a really tiresome process to get in. And secondly, so the recruitment process basically involves of two different stages, if I could say so. One is before your interview stage, and the other one is your interview stage, so to say. Before your interview, there are again two, three simple processes. It is your CV shortlist, then you have a test, and then probably it's a buddy program. And not just talking about these firms, but all the consulting firms in general. And then there are interview rounds, which is basically kind of test you on your HR problem solving and your overall interview and your fit interview, so to say. So, talking about how kind of I secured a position here. So, since the first step was CV, so it was actually the CV that got us through all of the other rounds. And these consulting firms basically look for something that they call as a success-oriented behavior. So they really do not expect, being undergraduates, they really do not expect all of us and any of us to be kind of good and to be the best at everything. So what they look at basically some two or three things that we are the best at from every other applicant that who is also applying at our stage. And if there is that consistency, if there is this kind of excellence that we kind of could exhibit from a CV, from a resume from the further kind of experiences and from the further rounds, and that is how kind of you make a shortlist and further on you proceed with the recruitment process.
So just to build on what Anirudh said, right? So if you just look at the numbers as well, so if there are say 500 applicants to a particular firm after the CV shortlist, so they're interviewing only say 10, 12, 13 people, right? So the first thing you need to realize is how small that ratio is. And the idea is that you can be the best at solving cases, but you don't get the opportunity to show how good you are at solving cases until you've been shortlisted. So the point that I'm trying to make here is the importance of having a CV that actually gets you that shortlist, right? Which is when you can actually then go and show whatever skills you have. So in that again, in terms of the CV, as Anirudh said, I don't think there is one very specific matrix, right? In terms of that, these are the things you need to do. It's different from everyone, and that's how it should be. But the general idea is that you need to have some story to tell, right? Your CV should tell some story. So, for example, in my case, the kind of story that I wanted to put forth is the idea of consistency, the idea that whatever it is that I tried to engage in, be it academics. So, for example, in academics, in 12th, I had the highest score in the history of Gujarat, which is where I'm from. Then in college as well, I did decently well. If you go to internships, I interned with Citibank, which is a good enough name, right? It gets you that kind of brand value. In terms of PORs, I led the Economic Society, and we were able to do pretty good work during our tenure. So when all of this comes together, in if you look at say competitions, right? So I represented India in a few competitions. I along with a few of my friends, we won the HSBC Asia Pacific Business Case Competition, right, which is the world's largest undergraduate case competition. So the general point that I wanted to make and the story that I wanted to give is the idea that whatever it is I'm doing it with a desire for excellence. Now, when someone is reading your CV, everything is one single small point. So it's not a single point which gets you that shortlist, which gets you that conversion. It's the idea of the kind of vibe, right? The overall personality which comes through via that CV. Now again, someone might feel that it's a pretty unfair way, in the sense that, Einstein or someone said Instagram will have all those quotes, one piece of paper cannot decide my future and the like. All that's fine, but the idea is that if nothing else, you can try to ensure that that piece of paper is as good looking as it can be. So I think that's all there is to it.
Thank you, Parth. Thank you, Anirudh, for that answer. And I would advise the audience to note down these pointers because these would really help you when you sit for your placements. So when you talk about telling a story through the CV, I wanted to say that you both have really great CVs in terms of PORs, in terms of societies, and the things you have done in college, be it the case competitions or good internships. So how do people who don't have such PORs or don't have such internships from a big brand name itself, so how do they secure placements ultimately? Or for a matter of fact, people who are looking for good summer internships, how do they proceed with that? Yeah.
Sure.
Bharat, if
I'll
you,
kick this
yeah,
one off.
sure.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I think that's a very important question. But the idea is that, so for example, in most of these companies, right, especially these big consulting firms, they operate on something which is called a spike. So what they're looking for is that if your CV has say 4 or 5 sections, right, the typical sections in terms of say academics, internships, PORs, and extracurriculars. So what they're expecting is not that you are excelling in every single element, right? If you do that, great. But what they're looking for is that you're doing great at everything, as in you're not lagging behind anywhere, but there's one particular position where you're extremely excelling. So they're fine if that's the case, right? So it's not really also the case that whatever your spike is, or whatever is the thing that is your highlight, needs to be something which is very related to the role that you're applying for. It doesn't need to be related to consulting. It doesn't need to be related to academics, right? If you're, say, a national level chess player, that's equally a spike, and I'm sure consulting firms or even other firms for that matter are going to be equally appreciative and are going to give you the value that that stands for. So the idea is that you need one highlight, which I think everyone has the opportunity to build. If PORs or internships are not your way through it, you look at other things, right? Maybe you look at volunteering externally. Maybe you try to create some good impact there. Maybe you try to focus on research if that's something which interests you. Ensure that you're writing articles. Maybe you can get try to get them published somewhere. That's something which becomes your highlight. If you're interested in any other sort of extracurriculars, right? Even if it's dancing or singing, and you're going to advanced stages in that, all of these are equally appreciated.
Yes, to add on to that, basically, exactly like what Pat mentioned, there is no there is no kind of box that we could fit around. There is no boundary that we could set that only these kind of things would make you would kind of guarantee your shortlist. The point here is that you need to identify your passion, or you need to identify the things where you think you are good at, and you need to excel in those. So, be it as Pat mentioned, be it through your PURs, be it through your internships, or be it through whatever else. Just to kind of put a case forward, just to kind of put an example forward, there was this person who is actually a senior from SRCC itself, and he had a lot of kind of interest in traveling. So he had mentioned all of his travel experience, all of his international programs, international exchange programs in his CV, and that got him to the shortlist of all of the top consulting firms. So this is also what has happened. So basically, they are looking. What they're looking for is what is your passion? What is it that you think you are the best at, and how is it that you could apply this to consulting? Because consulting, again, as we talk about, it's a generalist industry. There are lots and lots of things to do at. And so for that, what you need to be very good at is to kind of identify what you are good at and to deliver the same basically on the table. So yes, I guess that would be my 2 cents on it.
I hope that everybody would inculcate all of these points in their CVs. And yeah, like these are really good tips that you said. The one that you mentioned about a senior, I think that that plays a really good role in identifying your passions and aligning it with your career goals in the long term or be it in the short term. So I have a specific question from a student from the form. He says that I have more PORs in college societies, but have less of internship or work experience. So, should I start working for internships or should I continue with the PORs that I have to ultimately secure a good placement? Yeah.
Okay, so just to kick off on that, right? So I think for both of these things, I think in fact, be it PRs or internships or in fact anything else on your CV, it's never the number that matters, right? So even if you have 5 PORs, that's not really enough information to me in the sense that what are those PORs, right? For example, I in my second year had only one POR, which is the present because that role is an exclusive role. With that role, you cannot hold any other POR. That's by rule. So by nature, of course, I was in multiple societies in my first year, but in terms of cabinet positions, right, where you're actually leading, that was only one, and that's absolutely fine. The same thing applies for your internships as well. So in my first year, right, so of course you can always, if in my CV or wherever I'm going, you will always mention it in fancy words, right? You'll call it a boutique IB, you'll call it an equity advisory firm. Those are irrelevant firms, very honestly. Neither did I get to learn anything much. Neither were the firms very impactful. It was a lot of it is like a scam, but that doesn't matter, right? Because I have Citibank. So the idea is that you need one thing. You don't need too many things. And even in that one thing, right? It's about the impact that you can create. So, for example, if I'm talking about Citibank, the reason probably why that Citibank internship was valued as part of my CV was not just because of the name City, but because of the fact that when I was there, I did some good stuff, right? I made reports, I had discussions, I did work which actually brought positive outcomes to the firm, and that's what is the thing which really matters, and that's something you can demonstrate via any of the means possible.
Right, and just to add on to that, so a lot of us, what we do, we just we kind of chase the brands, the tags, and basically the words of the CV. But we tend to forget the how and the what actually we are doing inside of what all that we're mentioning in a CV. So just to say a city, just to say a tag or a brand won't kind of guarantee your shortlist. But exactly as what Pat mentioned again, the thing that you're doing, that the kind of work that you do or the impact that you're trying to create would also kind of build into your profile itself. And even if let's say that you have a very good brand and kind of you make a shortlist, but you won't have anything to talk about while you are kind of giving your interviews, right? So that is also one thing to consider. The other thing to also kind of basically why is internships and kind of PRs are so much talked about is also because the difficulty to kind of get into those PRs or to get in or to kind of the difficulty that you have to kind of access those internships, right? So if I talk about an on-campus internship or an off-campus internship, it is very difficult for anyone to kind of crack it, which is also how it sort of build a credibility to your profile. So I guess that is also something to consider, which is why there are people, all of us kind of, most of us do talk about on-campus internships and all of these society PRs a lot. But of course, that's not just the only thing. What also matters, and I guess what matters more, is the work that you're trying to do and the work that you've done. So again, two things here to consider.
Okay. In terms of internships, many people, not many people, but many students are struggling to secure good internships. Even I get messages from students like how to secure a good internship, be it LinkedIn or be it your own peer network. People are not able to find internships being an undergraduate student at this point. And coming from a commerce background, it becomes very difficult because if you are good in coding or some kind of programming language, you are given preference at all stages. But then if we consider our undergraduate program, it is a bit difficult for everyone out there, except the on campus internships that we have. So can you suggest any ways people can get good off campus internships? And this was asked in the Google form, so yeah, this would be really helpful.
All right. So while tapping on-campus internships is very difficult, tapping in off-campus internships is, again, I would say equally difficult, or in fact more difficult. So basically, very honestly, I personally don't have much of kind of tapping into much of experience into tapping off-campus internships. But from what I've heard and from what I know, I guess LinkedIn is the best way, the best platform that where you can get an off-campus internship now. Particularly talking about LinkedIn, there are two, three things again to consider. One is that LinkedIn job profile that we see that we kind of that has sorts of internships and jobs that you can get and you can directly apply. That is one. Second, of course, is of course the post and the profiles update that we see of recruiters, of people that are working in in topmost level and the leadership basically, who kind of regularly release their posts. And the third, and I guess the most talked about, the most used one is through DMs. So particularly talking about the DM one, because I guess the other two are more or less clear only. When you're talking about DM, it is very important for us to know that we are tapping, if you're tapping on, let's say, a very senior leader of a firm, the senior leader won't be having enough time to kind of go through your profile or to go through all the messages. So firstly, you need to make sure that the way in which you're approaching the person is very suited, is very relevant, is very precise, and is kind of directly communicating what you want to say. So directly just kind of tapping onto person saying I'm doing this, I want an internship would probably is one way. The other way that I think might also work, I haven't really tried it out, but yes, this could be something, is if you approach a person and ask him or her or them about what kind of work do they do, and kind of just show a genuine interest in the work that they are doing, and to kind of approach them asking if you could also help them in whatever they are doing, just so you get a better understanding of the work that they are doing. I guess if you kind of show this kind of genuine interest in whatever they are doing, they would obviously be more inclined to help you. And once kind of you have maintained that sort of relation, that sort of collaboration, association, you can go on and do what you actually wanted to. So other than that, of course, there are other platforms that you can tap on to their mails and so on and so forth. But would you like to say anything?
Yeah. So just to add on that, right? So I neither do I have any experience in getting good off-campus internships. I've got on a bad ones. So in that, so the only thing I can add on here, right? So whether it's via LinkedIn or even if it's via mailing, right? The important thing, the important philosophy with which you should work is to try to make the other person's life easier, right? They are the ones who are helping you by getting you an internship or offering you an internship, right? So you don't want to be creating more work for them. You want to make it easy for them. So how do you do that, right? Number one, to try to whatever you're writing, personalize it, right? Don't send a copycat mail to 100 people. I can almost guarantee you that zero will respond. If you send a personalized mail to 10, probably two will respond. And that the response is what matters, right? So once you're able to engage in that way, even then try to be very mindful of their time and their effort, right? So don't send them long paragraphs about how great you are and then say, can you offer me an internship? That's something that if they're interested in doing it, they'll check out your profile by themselves. So just try to be a bit precise as another said and be personalized. Don't try to adopt any cut paste methods. That also gives a really bad vibe in the sense that you don't really want this. You just want something. You're not really passionate about what you're applying for. So I think that's all you can keep in mind.
All right. Moving on further, I wanted to ask, like every job role or in every recruitment process, be it an internship or a placement, we have fit test or aptitude tests that are being taken online. You go to a portal and you log in and you answer those questions. So, can you suggest any tips or measures that people can keep in mind while attempting those tests?
Path, if you like to.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, very honestly, I have no experience with these. I don't. In the process for McKinsey or BCG, there were no specific fit tests or any form of an aptitude test. But the general idea that I will have, right? So in terms of both of these, the most important thing is to just research and ensure that you have a fair idea of the company, right? In terms of what the company does, what the company's culture is, what are the things that they like, what are the values that they stand for. So by when you have this general understanding, that probably serves as a base for you to go ahead and then answer all of these fit type of questions. I think, except that in fact to do that, right, the company's website is always important. But more important is your seniors, right? So if you have seniors who are already working there, they'll probably be able to give you a better idea in terms of the kind of things that the company likes and things that the company doesn't like. And when you have that, that's something which you can use as your sort of artillery. In terms of aptitude tests, again, if you're someone who's preparing for CAT or GMAT, again, you have an advantage, in my opinion, because those are the things you're already learning on the side. Except that I don't really think that there is any way. I mean, at least I'm not aware of ways in which you can prepare for aptitude test in 1 week, right? Because by definition, the kind of syllabus that they have and all of that is pretty wide. The only thing that I will recommend is that aptitude, right? The idea of aptitude in general is something which is extremely important in not just consulting and not just the processes, but even in terms of the actual work that you do and the work you do in whichever industry. So, because the idea of aptitude is so important, it makes sense, and I personally enjoy the idea of building that aptitude in yourself on an everyday basis, right? So, there can be multiple ways for this, right? I mean, if you want to solve a Sudoku every morning, do that, right? If you want to, if you find some online resource which sends you one puzzle every day, do that. But whatever it is, ensure that your mind is in the habit of thinking and thinking deeply and thinking critically. And I think that's something which will probably be the best way forward. Anirudh, over to you.
Yes, thanks a lot, Parth. I guess Parth mostly covered it all up. Just one or two things here that I would like to add. Again, if we talk about cultural fit test, I guess again there's a huge need. There is a lot of understanding that you also get about the company through the PIT. So even in the PITs, they also do mention what sort of values or what sort of people are they looking forward to, and more or less the test might or might not. I'm again not really aware, but more or less it should be kind of aligned to what they've mentioned in their PIT and to what kind of a person or to what kind of a job profile are they open to basically. That's number one. Number two, when you talk about aptitude test, again, as Pat mentioned, there is that is not something that you can do in like 3 4 days or a week. So you need to be very consistent about all of these things. And of course, like it's something that would come to help while you were working or even in college or even in your actual real life. That is something that I would rather suggest all of you to kind of start building. And even if kind of you've gotten a placement offer, you've gotten an internship offer, it is something that would help you basically. And so yeah, so just one tip to kind of help you through would be to give more as much marks as you could give, why as in when kind of the deadlines of the tests are approaching or the tests are approaching in general, because you also need to be very thorough with the deadlines, with the times, and so on and so forth. So these general tips, I guess, would make it.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you on the point that one should build their aptitude on an everyday basis and not just jump onto the test one day before preparing for the aptitude. The next question that I have for you guys is something personal, that how did you prepare yourselves for the placement season, and any specific resources that you want to share with our audience about how to prepare and from where to prepare for a management consulting interview or a job role. Yeah.
Sure. So I'll maybe tackle this in like three segments, right? So there's pre, during, and post, right? So before the placement season itself starts, I think that's the right time for you to start your preparation. Of course, if you don't, it's not the end of the world, but that's something which I would recommend. So you when you start prep early, the benefit that it gives you is that almost all of these interviews, right? Because if you're interviewing for one company, before you get that final offer, you will have to give like 4 or 5 interviews at least. That's something you should go and expect. Now, when that is the case, what you need is consistency again. And that's something that you can't build just by reading about it. You actually build by developing that habit within yourself to think in a certain manner, which is what the interview requires to do. And for you to do that and to get comfortable with those ideas, right, with those techniques, you need a little practice. Not that I'm saying that you sit and case prep for 10 hours every day. In fact, that's something which I would strongly recommend against doing. But you just need to be a bit steady in your approach. And I think that's what helps best. How you prep, so how everyone typically preps, right, is you make a case group, a case prep group. So that's basically just you and say 2 or 3 other people, which is a total of say 3 to 4 people, and you give cases to one another. And you hence, I mean, one person acts as the interviewer, one person acts as the interviewer, the candidate, and you give cases, and that's how it typically works and how we prepare. Now in this, where do you do this for, in terms of where do you get these cases in terms of the case books? So the ones that I used and the ones I found most useful were three. One is Case Compendium, which is a new one that was launched by some of our seniors from SRCC. That one was, I feel, the best of the lot. Secondly, there is a case book called CIC, which is Case Interviews Cracked. That's also a pretty good resource, especially for you when you're starting out. And the third is IIMA. IIMA, again, being a MBA level book, is slightly advanced than what you would need at an undergrad, but you can pick and choose some cases there. So, in terms of the types of cases, again, you learn about this as you start, but basically, there's one type called profitability cases, which is the one I think it makes more sense for you to start off with, because that will actually help you understand the basic fundamentals of case solving in terms of how you think, how you segment the problem, and the like. I think, Anirudh, maybe we can tackle these three segments ek ek karke, so you can share your thoughts here.
Sure. So, how I would like to say it is basically two kinds of preparation here. One is your passive preparation and your active preparation. Passive preparation is again everything that you've done throughout in the past, like in the past years of your life, especially throughout your college, because that is what's kind of the latest thing that you have done if you kind of go on and apply even for an internship or a placement. So firstly, all of those things, and majorly and more importantly, talking about the active preparation again, as Pat mentioned, there is enough time for you for everyone to prepare. So what I did again was I kind of 8 weeks before our placement cycle began, I kind of started forming these case groups again, and there were three of us. And but as unlike I guess Pat started off with profitability, I particularly started with guesstimates. So guesstimates again, I guess all of you would be aware of I guess about guesstimates by now. So I started off with guesstimates. Why guesstimates particularly? Because number one, in most of the cases that we go around in further, even in unconventional cases or even profitability market sizing, guesstimates kind of form the base of. I at least this is what I think. Guesstimates form the base of whatever you're going to do next. So guesstimate, I guess, was the way to go for me. And yes, I guess we can move on and then can share my thoughts as well.
Sure. So then, in terms of the things you need to do during the process, right, which is when the placement season has sort of started, right? You've started getting the feel of it. So at that time, so I think few things, right? First, in terms of companies, right, itself, right? Company research is something which becomes very important. Now, as such, all of the consulting firms, at least the big few, all of these do more or less everything, right? For example, you have some firms like E.T. Kearney, which is typically specializing in terms of the supply chain management. So that's something which becomes specific to them. You have a firm like say LEK Consulting, which focuses on education a lot. So maybe social issues a lot. You have a Dalbug, which is a social consulting. So those become specific consulting companies, right? Then you have on the other hand you have McKinsey, BCG, Bain, and the like, which are sort of general consulting companies in the sense that they will cater to almost all of these domains. So the idea is to understand what the company does and then tailor your preparation according to that, especially in the time frame which is approaching the interview, so that you get into that right frame of mind and you can actually sort of also deal in some specifics of the relevant domains. Secondly, in terms of the practice, it's important to practice, but my approach would always be that you practice steadily and you keep doing it every day, right? For example, if you're doing two cases every day, do two cases every day. Don't overdo it. Of course, you shouldn't underdo it as well, but equally important to not overdo it. So that the reason behind this is that again, case solving or the kind of manner in which cases proceed is not a very natural skill, right? It's a skill which you have to develop. So because of that, if you do too many, you'll probably get overburdened, you'll probably get burnt out, and you'll not peak at the right time. What this means is that, so if you've done say n number of cases, that number differs for everyone, but the idea is that you reach the peak of your performance when the actual interviews are happening, because those are the ones which actually matter. Now, if it's actually the case that you've already peaked and by the time the interviews come you're on your downward trend, that is not something which will bring the best results. So I think in terms of during, that's it. In terms of post, of course, there's nothing for you to do if you have gotten an offer. Just have fun and party so that when the work actually starts and you're being overworked, you have some nostalgia.
All right. So just to add on to that, again, just one more thing that I mentioned while we were preparing in our case books, one major part of course, was kind of referring to the case books and referring to the written material, so to say. But one major part was also referring to the YouTube videos. I guess that is where kind of the verbal part and all of those things also come in handy. So Victor Cheng is also one YouTube handle that you guys can go through. So yeah, so that was one thing that I wanted to add here. And again, while you're preparing for your interviews, again, a very important thing, as Pal slightly mentioned, something that we both of us have heard from our buddies as well, is again to kind of make sure that you are at your best during the interviews and not anytime before or after your interviews, which is why it is very, very, very important for you, all of you, to be very consistent throughout the whole process. Do not miss it. Do not miss it just for the sake of. Do not do it for the sake of it, and then do not kind of miss it just like that. That is very important. The second part here is, of course, so while we are talking about consulting, it is an industry again which is open to kind of everything. So you would be getting cases of industries that you would not even have heard of, or industry that you would not even know. Excuse me, actually, what all is there in that industry. So it's very important for all of us and for all of you to kind of create an open mind and to be very open to kind of consuming knowledge. So one way of doing that is, of course, kind of when you're going through the case books and all. The other way is, of course, you read, you basically go through the news articles, you read in what all everything is going on in the world, so on and so forth. So the point here is to basically be open to not knowing things and accepting that you not know things, and to kind of have a structured way of kind of delving deeper into how would you actually get about knowing things and then solving it. Because even in a case, however much you prepare, there'll be something that you would not know, to be very honest. And be it at an undergraduate level or a postgraduate level, you cannot obviously know everything. So that is very important for you to know that you would not know everything, and the way in which you proceed ahead in that particular point at that particular time, I guess, kind of strikes it out basically.
Just to add one small thing, right? So when I was listening to Anirudh, so another thing is that you need to get into the flow of it, right? Now, what I mean by flow is that your mind needs to start working that way, in the sense that even when you're not preparing, you start thinking of things in that structured manner. So, for example, for anything, right? So if I'm walking around, I'm walking in a grocery store and I see a Coke bottle, right? Your mind needs to work in the way that you're thinking, why is this particularly the shape, right? Maybe that sort of curve in between is for easy grip. Maybe it's for something which has benefits in terms of packaging. So to think about all of these in your everyday life, right? When you reach that stage, that is when you actually develop that habit. If you're sort of driving on the road, if your mind is just thinking in terms of how many cars are there on this sort of road, or maybe what's the total length of road in my city. So when these sort of ideas keep popping up in your mind, that's the kind of practice which actually helps you reach that peak.
Yeah, so those were some really insightful words that came from both of you. I got to know that I wasn't audible in between when I announced about the feedback form. So, to let you know, we are having a feedback form that needs to be filled by the audience, and two of you from the audience would get a chance to get your CVs reviewed, and we'll be conducting a lucky draw for the same. So please don't forget to fill in the feedback form that has been put in the chat box. Yeah. So heading on to the next question, we want to know, like, for the people who are in their first year, so they wanted to know if how they can utilize their first year of college in the best possible way, so that they can learn a lot of skills and enhance their knowledge at the same time, and that ultimately leads to good placements if they're aiming for the same. So how to utilize that? Yeah.
Um, all right. So by utilize, see again, there are two ways to look at it. When we're talking about college, college is not just about kind of getting to the end of it. Of course, that is one. That is one name that you come to with. That is one name that you come at college with. But of course, then there's the other part of kind of enjoying college. So I guess both of them have equal importance. It's just that the time factor comes into picture. So, while kind of coming back to your answer, coming back to a question of what all should we do? So, I guess the first thing is to, even while you're doing things, of course, there is backup at the back of your mind. There would be certain things going on that I want to secure a place when I want to do an MBA, so on and so forth. But do not be very, very conscious about it, so that you kind of lose basically the fun of doing it. So to say. So I guess this is something that particularly helped me. Of course, I did have it at the back of my mind that I want to kind of secure a job, but not kind of having it while the time I was doing it made me actually do better at it, because there was no kind of certain benchmark that I was looking forward to. There was always and always the thing that I want to be at my best and I want to do my best, the things that I'm doing. And talking particularly about what all you can do, I guess two, three things here again. Of course, if we look at the CV, there are internships, there are PURs, and there are other extracurricular activities. So a little bit about all three of them again. So internships, again, we have pretty much covered everything about internships, I guess, off campus, on campus. PURs, again, something that all of us are aware of. Particularly one thing about PR. So it's not always necessary, and a lot of people also do have it at the back of their heads. They also do judge societies by tiers, like tier one society, tier two, tier three. I guess that is something that most of us have created in our heads, and that is something that kind of has been going on as a legacy. It is absolutely, absolutely unfair and very wrong. I don't think so. There is any recruiter, there is any interviewer that I have seen, or any partner in an interview that kind of judges a society by what it is. Parth, if you could take on, I do have someone. I'm really sorry.
Sure, sure. So just to expand on the idea of tiers, right? So I mean, this is just like a false concoction which you need to eliminate from your mind. Of course, there is a difference, right? That is not to say that all societies are equal. They're not equal. Some societies do much more work than the other. Some societies do have much more impact than the other. But don't just accept that because someone said it's tier one or something like that, right? Think about how it aligns with what interests you. Think about how it gives you opportunities, right, in terms of growing yourself, and especially growing yourself in terms of something you're passionate for. So once that is something that you sought, I'm sure anyone can sort of ensure that they're getting the value that they need out of it, even for a CV context. In fact, if you think a society is great, right, in terms of it aligns with what you want to do, but you think it's not going to give you enough CV points, right? My suggestion would be that you think of it in the sense that I'll make it give me that CV points, right? If I'll try to ensure that in my second year, if I'm someone who is in the cabinet, I'll grow the society in a way wherein we are doing the level of work that we actually have the potential for. So if you think of it positively in that sense, I think that will help you in terms of what else you can do in your first year. I mean, like, of course, just to acknowledge what Anirudh said in terms of having fun, I think that's extremely important. Also, because the kind of stories, right, in terms of when you're having fun, you get a lot of stories, and those stories are very important. Again, not just for a recruitment process, but also in terms of ensuring that you have a very comprehensive college experience. Because college is much more so about the experience and the kind of things that you will develop in your personal self than anything else, because until and unless you have those experiences, you're not able to grow yourself in terms of say interpersonal skills, right, which is probably the most important thing when it comes to careers like consulting, right? Consulting is so much more about the kind of relationships you can build. So it's not just about staying in your own cocoon or being limited to yourself and trying to do everything there is on the internet, right? Every course on the internet. I don't think that's the way to go. The idea is simply of balance. You do whatever it is that you're interested in, just do it well, right? I think the broad theme, you do whatever you want to do, just do it well. If you're doing it well, people will be fine with it. Anirudh, yeah, back to you.
Yes, just to add on to that, so a lot of, I guess, Parth mostly summed it up. Just a couple of things that I would like to also add here. So a lot of people and a lot of college students, particularly, we also kind of fall in kind of whatever we've heard of and from whatever we have seen that has been happening for the past years, But I guess again, the point here is actually that we in the kind of in this race that we're kind of running in to kind of secure a place and to get a good internship opportunities, we tend to lose out on an interest. We tend to not even explore things that no one has even talked about. I guess that is one major mistake that most of us do here, and I guess it's very important to for every one of us to kind of not say no to a new thing that we don't even know about, that we feel that might or might not go ahead and kind of add in some value. I guess if we see that if it is something that could be of our interest, if it is something that is completely unknown, why not trying to kind of give it a shot? I guess that is the way that you approach things, you learn things. I guess that is one thing that it is very kind of comes in very handy while you're working in a consulting industry. So again, that would be one tip from mine, I guess, because a lot of us here are not the way that we should be here.
Okay. So we talked about personal growth and society. So I have two more related questions for the same. So one of the most generic questions that we received in our forms was to how to be more confident. Now this is an open-ended question. So would you like to take it?
Sure. I mean, again, the most big the biggest disclaimer here is that it differs, right? It really differs from person to person. I can only speak to what helps me be confident, right? I cannot speak to whether this will work for you or not. In this, I think the most important idea is that, at least for me, is that I'll be confident as long as I know that there is reason for me to be confident, right? So, for example, if I'm sitting here and having this conversation, right? If Anirudh and I are giving some pointers we were discussing here, why am I confident? Is because I know that I actually prepared well, I actually put in the kind of work that was needed, and that is why I got a good placement, and hence I am sitting here. Now, because I have faith in myself in terms of the background to it, I am automatically confident in the context of this conversation. I don't need to worry, like, what if someone asks a question X? I know I can handle it. So I think that's at least that's the approach for me in terms of being prepared enough so that confidence is something that comes automatically. again, I understand that that's not how it works for many people, but it's about finding your own path. Anirudh, yeah.
Again, just one thing. So exactly, what also kind of worked for me, and I think that this should apply to most of us here, is to be genuine, because a lot of people I've seen kind of try to show someone or try to be someone that they're not. So being the way that you are, so I am usually someone who laughs a lot. So even in the interviews, I know, and the kind of conversation that we had with the interviews with the partners, I guess those were more or less revolved around what kind of a person are you, and it is very easy for someone who has 10 or 15 years of experience to judge it. So it's very easy for the recruiters to know or to kind of judge it in a second if you're being true to yourself, if you're being genuine or not. So I guess once you kind of reach that stage of accepting the fact that even if you are being the person that you really are, and you accept who you are as a person, I guess that is the best way to build confidence, because you would know that you would obviously kind of that would obviously develop confidence in yourself. So I guess that would be the way to go. And for the ones who kind of don't have confidence, or the ones who feel that they're lagging behind in terms of self confidence, I guess subconsciously at the back of your mind, it is also very important for you to feel that you're confident enough. So one or two tricks that did help me back, I guess a couple of years back, or to listen to these motivational songs, listen to a lot of things that really made me feel positive, basically. So keeping a positive eye and optimism, I guess, are the two things to go about it.
Just to add here, sorry. So I mean, what Anirudh spoke of, right, like now. So in terms of feeling it in the back of your mind, I'm just a small recommendation. So on YouTube, there's a TED talk by Amy Cuddy, if I'm not wrong. It's called "Fake It Till You Make It," right? So what the point that she's trying to make, backed by solid scientific research, is that even, and she's actually saying this, right? If you're just faking it, right, but you're faking it and you're forcing yourself to fake it, after a time it will become real for you. So I think, I mean, another tip here then becomes that if you think you're not confident, maybe just try faking that confidence for a little while. And when you actually expose yourself in situations that even if you're faking that confidence, after a while that confidence actually becomes inherent to you.
Adding on to what you guys said, I totally relate in my personal experience, because when I entered college, it was me, someone who was from a small town and didn't know how to find their way. But I forced myself, even if I felt terrible inside, I tried talking to people, forcing myself to be confident and faking it. And yes, I can say today that I'm very confident to speak to anyone out there in the crowd. So yeah, this really helps. Another question. So according to the general norms, this person is really in great trouble. He or she says that they didn't work in their first year and their CV has almost nothing to show to the recruiters for the summer internships that are approaching. So how do I secure one, or what are the avenues that I can explore with such a CV that has nothing to show? Yeah.
Um, all right. So basically, firstly, I am not really sure of what kind of a CV is it that you have nothing to show. I don't think so that there is like there could be any CV basically. So I guess it's the first step here would be to not think of yourself, to not think so low of yourself, basically, to be very honest, if you are here. So, and the second thing here would be that at summer internship, if we talk about particularly, summer internship would start on the next year from, I guess, May and to June, May and to July. So there is still around 5 or 6, 7 months to go to till you kind of till you actually begin a summer internship. So till that time, what I would rather suggest you to do is to build onto your profile, build onto your skills. Now, if you kind of go on and kind of build on skills, like whatever, identify one thing that you want to do, identify one thing where you think your interests lie, and build on and kind of build some background knowledge into it. Go on and tap people. I guess here, when you honestly saying tapping an on-campus internship would be a little difficult, but if you talk about an off-campus internship, going on and telling people and kind of tapping people, saying that you do have this kind of background knowledge and you want to learn more, basically, I guess that would be the best. That could be your best foot forward. And till then, if not internship, what I would also suggest this person is to go on and try and look out for life projects. So there are a lot of places who have these life projects thing where actually it's not just kind of you being delegated someone else's work, but you also learning new things and building onto new skills. So I guess that is another way to go about it. But whatsoever it may be, even if you crack a good on-campus, off-campus internship, or even if you're not, just be very mindful, or just be very mindful of the fact again that there are plenty of things to win, plenty of opportunities for you to kind of exploit and to utilize. So one thing here is to not think so low of yourself, and to kind of accept it and move forward and kind of go on with it. But
Yeah, I think so. If again, if you think that you're, I would again, as Anirudh said, I won't accept the word nothing. But if you think you don't have enough, right, at this stage, I think it's important to sort of convert your thought process to a more long-term one. In the short term, of course, long terms are a sum of short terms. You have to try to keep doing the best you can in the immediate future as well. But switch your thinking in terms of the goals, right, in terms of the outcomes to a long-term one. Maybe instead of thinking of this immediate summer internship, think about placement, right? If you don't want to think about placements which are 2 years away, think about, say, MBA, right? If that's something you want to do, but just think long term. So what that does as well, I think my sense would be that psychologically that helps you feel more confident and better about yourself, because if you're just thinking about what is immediately in front of you, it will feel like too steep a hill to climb, right? And that really doesn't help you do even perform at the best of your capability. So with that, right? So if there are, you think you can't get the traditional types of advantage, maybe look at volunteering somewhere and actually getting a very holistic life experience out of it. I'm sure there'll be some recruiter somewhere who will really appreciate that, and you'll convert the some job, right? So you can always try and think different. Of course, if you have any sort of family contacts or personal contacts that you can tap, uh, again, equally fine, right? I don't think there's any. I didn't have that, but like I don't think there's any judgment there. Whatever works for you works for you. So maybe you can go down that path. Otherwise, you can just look at, as Anirudh said, there are life projects. Even otherwise, maybe you can just look at things which may not need that kind of external engagement, right? Maybe you can pick up something like a course. Maybe you can start preparing for a CFA or an FRM if those are things that interest you. You really don't need any sort of qualification to enter those, right? So you direct your energies there. So the idea is that, as Anirudh says, the first and foremost, not think so low of yourself, and B is to take action, right? Don't spend too much time analyzing what it is that you should do. Of course, you need to think about it and you need to plan things, but then the most important piece is you actually doing it. So try to minimize the kind of time you're spending over analyzing and maximize the time you're spending actually doing it. And I think that's the way forward.
Yeah. So this was much of an inspirational session that we needed for all the first year, second years, and even people in the third year who are sitting for their placements. And yeah, with this, we come to the end of the session because I'm really sure we have covered all the intricacies, be it the placements, be it internships, be it the generic questions when it comes to personal growth, confidence, and personality building. So thank you so much, Anirudh and Parth, for such an informative and enlightening session for the audience. And just note that this session would be uploaded on YouTube so that you can refer it in future in case you need any kind of inspiration and guidance from these two guys. And we are positive that we have had an exceedingly remarkable and illuminating experience so far. So just like all good things come to an end, it's time we bring this session to an end as well. So we hope that the audience has had the most fruitful experience and one that they will hold fresh in their memory for times to come. So now I would request Medhavi Raina to propose the vote of thanks. Yeah.
Anirudh and Parth, I'm very, very much elated that you guys came and shared your insights in this placement journey. So it was absolutely delightful to hear it. I passed out this year. I didn't sit for placements, but so I was very much surprised कि oh अच्छा ये भी होता है placements में. So I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. And with this, we will take your leave. And Parth and Anirudh, I hope that we are connected for future sessions as well.
so,
Okay, guys. Yeah.
thanks a lot for having us here. And yes, definitely, if there are any, yeah, we'll stay connected for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. It
Okay.
was great fun. And
Thank
like
you.
again, if anyone else has anything else, I mean, maybe on Instagram or LinkedIn, wherever you can find me, and I'm sure Anindra as well, feel free to ping us. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Glad to have both of you on board. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.